Councillor Fareham to move the second amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This time I was ready for the new Lib Dem tactic. I rise to move this amendment, Lord Mayor, and I commend it to the Chamber. It's an interesting thing that we heard the usual Labour attack lines on the opposition that you're only amending X percent of the budget or Y percent or whatever. And of course it's true. But of course it's the fault of the budget. I have made clear all along that we should be having zero-based budgets and actually getting back to the days when we had budgets that had lots of lines in them that we could actually track down the expenditure rather more. We have less spending lines in the budget today for the whole council than the old Cultural Services Committee used to have. Now, that sometimes that can be an advantage. So Labour never did manage to prove that they weren't spending $250,000 on the vanity gates at the back of the building that I exposed, along with the BBC, not the whole Daily Mail. They were late to the party too. But it's also a help to the opposition sometimes, like today, when I am going to make certain statements, and I ask the Chamber to believe that they are hidden somewhere in the depths of vagaries of Labour lines, because I'm never ashamed to take a good line and use it. But let's look at what I'm out and proud about in this debate, and I am proud about my budget, except I'm shocked that this year, if I heard Councillor Dadd correctly, they're actually proposing an increase in roads repairs that's bigger than my proposed increase. For the first time, I've actually been outspent by the Liberal Democrats, but that's good, because it shows that the opposition recognise the importance of road expenditure and we're prepared to address it quicker. And what else would we be doing while we do that? We would be clamping down on some operators in some parts of the city to actually shorten their contract periods, particularly the statutory workers in parts of the city where nobody lives and they manage to spin it out for weeks on end so they can keep their gangs together rather than actually give us what we need. We will not preside over the Labour's traffic chaos. We will be spending more and delivering it smoother and better, because in our budget we do have proposals for dealing with cycle lanes, particularly on Bricknell Avenue. You weren't expecting me to say that now, were you? Anybody think there's an election coming up? We will be making sure they're compliant with LTN 20, and we will be making sure, as I said to Councillor Hale when he was decent enough to come to OSMC, sitting where Councillor Payne is sitting now. Now, let me just hold that thought about the power that has occupied that seat. And I said to him when he asked about cycle lanes, and he mentioned Freetown Way, I said, fine, make those excessively wide pavements narrower and actually spend a lot of money doing it properly and not reduce carriageway, and I'll support you. Make it a cheap paint line, and I won't. Well, bless Councillor Hale, he listened to me. It's not a cheap paint line, it's the highly expensive lines of plastic bollards everywhere, which aren't actually pleasing to cyclists and aren't helpful to road capacity elsewhere. And as I say, as Councillor Harrison would say once upon a time, if you ever want to know, listen to the Conservatives. They know and they get it right first. And let's look at what else I'm talking about. I mentioned some of this in my revenue expenditure, but that's because I've also capitalised some expenditure. And I've done this by taking an extra $1 million on the borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board, because while interest rates are so low, it's an ideal time to grab that money, especially as interest rates are fixed. And the extra $1 million was an eyebrow was raised by the Treasury, and I said an extra $1 million on what Labour are borrowing is negligible, and you might think it's prudent, but I'm taking an extra $1 million, and I'm happy to do so, because it's about local government expenditure. You've heard me say it before. You know what my belief in local government is. It's absolutely Chamberlain-esque to the nth degree. It's about, in those days, slum clearance, paving, highways. Well, I believe the same now. And it's no good, and I think I quote Councillor Webster or allude to him correctly here, it's no good saying that we're waiting for the government to come along with money to do local schemes. It's about we do it. We do it, and we do it well. Because there is no point in local government if we can't make those local choices, fund those local choices, and support them. And that's what stuff like the Public Works Loan Board exists for. It's why I support it, and it's why I'm advocating a lot of funding that way. And what else is in here? I return again to investments and all my usual investments you'd expect in parks, libraries, street lighting, everything Labour are putting in, but I'm putting in more. And I'm putting in more because I care. That's Labour's mantra, isn't it? It's all your care and compassion is measured by how much you spend. So I'm the most caring and cuddly member of this council. Okay, this is a cue now to start applauding me and doing all this banging stuff. Oh, God, blimey. Kensington and Chelsea, if you want to applaud me, I'll appreciate it. Ladies, thank you. That's literally just bought me time to find where I was in my speech. I also talk about increasing funds for CPO regeneration sites of listed buildings at risk. Labour's tardy and slow nature, to say the least, about this has got to end. Some of this stuff, when I was a dynamic and hard driving on an ordinary SRA chairman of planning, we were actually clamping down on buildings at risk. We got rid of all those in the private sector, and we made sure that the next step would be to tackle, those in our sector rather than the private sector, and that was going to be the next step. Now, all we ever get is delays, fudges and whatnot. We haven't got the money to do it. We need another process. We need something else. Excuses after excuses. Those excuses end under my exciting proposals in the capital budget, where I'm finding the money to help the cabinet out by making sure that we have got the money to do those purchases. And to do those purchases that we do up the repairs and bring the buildings back into beneficial public use. And yes, other old favourites are in there, particularly my enthusiasm, transport. Now, you all know I have a very genuine and deep enthusiasm for transport. And of course, it's in here. We've got feasibility studies. Sorry, Councillor Dadd, sometimes you have to have a consultant, but I will be doing it prudently. And I think when you were in administration, you called them something else rather than consultants. I can't remember what it was, but you employed a heck of a lot of them yourselves. So I will say that we are making a start on transport links and park and ride by tram to the city centre. We are looking at intermodal transport, and we'll also be looking at connecting to in the sub-region, all in our expanded budget. Because it's communication that keeps us together. It's communication that makes sure that the great city of Hull, supplying the culture, the retail centre, and everything that makes life civilised, enjoyable and worth living, is available not just to the people of Hull, but also to our valued partners in the sub-region, so that they can come in and not necessarily have to do so through traffic jams and chaos, but through Duo-Rail, exciting opinion. And could I take this moment to thank my colleagues, Councillor Drake Davis and the absent Councillor Chater, now no longer irritating Councillor Black with endless tweets, for their contribution and help in the work that we're doing on that. So it's all there in front of you. It's really exciting stuff. I know you want to support it. I know deep down inside, each and every one of you is looking at some of this and panting with excitement, slavering with the opportunities that I'm holding out before you. It's worth reminding you that every year, at least one time, I have something pinched from my budget. It's why I'm here. I'm the think tank for you all, and it costs you nothing. I don't even charge consultants' rates. Lord knows my house tells me that I don't charge consultants' rates. But it's here. We've got the library in for Bricknell. We've got because it needs it. Because Bricknell Ward, and I make no bones about it, just because it's an election year, I say this every year, whether it's an election year or not, we have so few municipal facilities. Bricknell is the land that Labour overlook, and I, in my budget, address that and try and alter that. I talk about the Avenues Library with my usual clear decisiveness, my clear decision. At least I'm heroically right or I'm heroically wrong. Not for me the politics of fudge and despair and procrastination that we've seen over the Avenues Library. There it is. Flog off the one on Chance Ave. Well, in fair point, Councillor Hale, you consulted too much on that in that area. That is actually true on that one, definitely. So it's there. It's again investment in an underinvested part of the city. So I commend the capital budget to you. I commend the belief in public expenditure triggers off investment by a private sector that often is no longer swaggering and buccaneering and free market, but tends to follow those of us who have that luxury of being able to borrow and secure at rates that they can't. I'm encouraging investment. I'm encouraging you to vote for this amendment. I'm begging or whimpering, I'm not quite sure which yet, Councillor Ross, who seems to be busy twitting, so I'm just dialing him in to make sure that with any luck he'll stand up and second formally and not call this programme lunacy, like he did my last one, which hurt me to the quick. I move the capital amendment, Lord Mayor, commend it to the Chamber, and remember this, you will be pinching ideas from it in future years.
Thank you, Councillor Fareham. Do we have a second of